All right, so we are going to go over 7 ways that narcissists make you look like the liar, and so that you can be protected, you can protect yourself when they come at you. I've seen every single one of them so many times. They're so transparent, right? The one good thing about narcissists is that they are so predictable. They are horrible and heinous to deal with. It is awful. Awful, but they are very, very predictable. I know when they come at you, it like causes you to feel so, blood starts to boil. You start to feel sick inside. You start to feel, your chest pounding. You start to feel nauseous. Like you don't even want to look at your phone. I know, believe me, I do. But they can't win unless you give in. You're not going to do that because they're actually more afraid of you than you are of them. They don't want you to figure that out. All right. And I've helped so many people uncover them. I know how to get them. Right. So listen all the way to the end so that you can shift that dynamic too, so that you can become more powerful against them. All right. So, number one way that they make you look like the liar is they start smear campaigns with their flying monkeys. And now let me tell you, their flying monkeys are their little minions, they're people that they line up to try to make you look bad. Everybody else thinks this and no one else thinks that. And if you want to know more about what narcissists say, definitely check out my video on narcissist favorite sayings. They say all kinds of stuff like that all the time. But they start their smear campaigns, by the way, sometimes long before you even realize it. And they're really, really good because they'll say things like, I'm really concerned about how much they're drinking. I'm just because I care. They'll put it in terms like that. They don't say, oh, they're an alcoholic a lot of times. I mean, they'll put it in, couch it in terms of care so that they don't look like they're bad mouthing. So that's one of the things that they'll do. And then they'll be like, you're over there going, I'm not that way, and then the minute you have like one glass of wine in your hand or whatever, their flying monkeys are like, oh, yeah, there they are, alcoholic, right? Because that seed has been planted in the person's brain. So that's one way that they make you look like the liar. Number two is they will distort emails or texts by cutting pieces of it out. That's why I like email best, honestly, because it's much harder to do that with email because you can see the email chain. They have the heading there. You can actually see the date, the timestamp, all of it is right there. And so if like pieces of it are missing, it's a whole lot easier. Texts, it's a lot easier, and texts like go on and on and on, and it's a lot harder to follow. And so they do distort that, especially in court, especially in mediations and things like that. So that's why I do prefer email. Like if you have children, I definitely prefer that you use like a app, one of those court approved apps, things like that. So they'll distort that. They will cut pieces out. They'll use just the parts that they like. Very, very, very manipulative. Number three, the number three thing that they use to make you look like the liar is they will take pictures. They will take pictures. They will take video, and they will just show the parts that they want. Now, I know, they're not supposed to be doing video, audio, things like that. But sometimes, because they can't, sometimes it's not admissible in court, pictures can be, but audio a lot of times is not. But they can show those things or play those things sometimes for custody evaluators, other types of people who are involved with the court system a lot of times. So a lot of times it can be useful. You can use it too, by the way. But, they'll just play and show the parts if they want, make it, make you look like the liar. Or they'll just play it for their flying monkeys or their potential witnesses. They create the narrative that they want to create. Right? So that's number three. Number four, this one is so manipulative. So manipulative. But I've definitely seen narcissists do this to make people look like liars. They will confirm conversations in emails or texts that never took place. This is to confirm that you said that I could have so and so next weekend on your weekend, the child. What? We never had that conversation, but they'll put that in the little app there, the custody app. Oh, yeah, I've seen that. And then they show that to the court. Well, we had the conversation. We never had that conversation. Oh, yes, we did. They make you look like the liar. So manipulative. I have a whole video, by the way, on this is how you deal with narcissist false allegations. Definitely check out my video on that, because you're going to write back right away in the app. We never had that conversation, and I really don't appreciate that you're trying to create a false conversation. But you're going to watch my video on this is how you deal with narcissist false allegations. And number five way that narcissists make you look like the liar is they trigger you to get super emotional, and then they sit over there super calm, and you can't buy into that. You can't do that. Right? They trigger you, get you all upset, and then use that against you, and then you look like the liar, right? They get you to be emotional while they remain calm, and then you look like the liar. That's number 5. Number 6 way that they make you look like the liar while they remain calm is they will instigate domestic violence in the home, and you end up fighting back just to self-defense. And then they call the cops and then blame you and say you were the instigator. And then you look like the liar. That is really, really bad. And then they'll end up filing for the restraining order and say you were the aggressor, whether it's man or woman. By the way, I've seen it in both sides, male or female. That's very, very, very manipulative, but I've seen both sexes do it. And be very, very careful about that. Don't allow yourself to fall into that trap, especially if you've got somebody who potentially could be a malignant narcissist who doesn't even care if they will ruin your career or whatever. All right. So just put no more in the comments if you don't want any more of this drama that you're dealing with a narcissist. I want you to put no more in the comments right now. All right. Because you're done with this drama. And number 7, way they make you look like a liar, segues right into what I'm about to say, which is they create drama, all kinds of drama, and blame it on you wherever they go. All kinds of drama. They make it so angry and yelling and all sorts of things happening, birthday parties, holidays, whatever it is, and then say it was your fault. You created it. You're the one. You made the problem, whatever it was. Drama, 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 wherever. You caused it. Look at you. It was because you were mad, or you did this, or you didn't pay that, or you did this. I mean, and you're over there like minding your own business going, what? I didn't do anything. You're the one. Can't you see? Oh my God. They pick on you and they create drama. It's constant wherever you go, whatever's happening. They're just sucking you into this thing all the time. And there you are. And if you're not careful, you're just going to be in it. And so you got to be really, really vigilant, because they're going to make you look like the liar no matter what you do. Those are the 7 ways that narcissists make you look like the liar. And now you know to be on the watch for them. And now you know that you're not going to allow yourself to get sucked into them, because you're going to slay the day. You know what to do. Today, we are tackling 4 ways that narcissists make you look like the abuser. And more importantly, what can you do about it? So, first of all, why do narcissists do this sort of thing? Well, they do this sort of thing because when you go into the discard phase of a relationship, which is the last phase of a relationship, and if you want to know more about the discard phase of a relationship, I have a whole video on the discard phase specifically of a narcissistic relationship, and you can definitely check that out. But when you go into that, this is when you see the birth of the smear campaign. This is when you become public enemy number 1. They see things in black and white. You either have to be for them or against them. It can't be this amicable thing. And by the way, even if they say, oh, I want it to be amicable and we can do this ourselves and all of that sort of thing, do not believe them. Do not buy into it, because what's going to happen is they're going to be way ahead of you. And by the way, they're going to get you to agree to all sorts of things, and they're going to try to hold you to those agreements. And then they're not going to hold themselves to any of those agreements. Okay. So don't buy into any of that. And the other thing that happens is that you end up saying, oh, I'll give you blah, 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 thinking it's going to garner some sort of favor with them. And it doesn't. Like, they just take it, they think that they're entitled to it or something, and it just goes into the wind and forgotten. And you're over there going, hey, I gave you all this stuff, and they don't think of it as anything fantastic or at all. I was supposed to have that or whatever. And you don't end up getting any kind of credit for any of that. So don't bother. It doesn't help you. The only thing it does is actually hurt you, because you gave up a lot of your leverage in the long run. Just don't do any of that sort of thing. So going back to the 4 ways that the narcissist makes you look like the abuser and what you can do about it. So what they will do is they'll do things like, number 1, send you texts or emails that make you look like they accused you of abuse or affairs constantly, and then try to use the emails that they sent you in court. Or they'll take parts of emails and texts. It's like, this is all still part of number 1. They take these parts of emails or texts and they try to fashion them or manipulate them in some way to make it look like that was abuse or an affair or something like that. What you can do about it is, first of all, texting is not good, because texting is something that can easily be manipulated. And that's why I do prefer email, because email is much harder to manipulate than texts. Emails do have a time and date stamp on them, much easier to see the chain on it. Text is much harder. Or use a court-approved app if you do have children. But that's one of the things that they will do. They'll send you something that accuses you. I can't believe you said that, did that, pushed me, that sort of thing. So that's number 1. Number 2 is they will start planting seeds with their flying monkeys long before you even realize that there's going to be a breakup happening. So they'll start telling their little flying monkeys, their little minions, long before that, oh, he was abusive to me, he said this to me, she said this to me, and this is business related or personal, by the way. And they'll use the word abuse. Even if it wasn't abusive, they'll use the word abuse. Even if, let's say they pushed you down, they did all this stuff, and all you did was like get them off of you. They'll say, he restrained me, he wouldn't let me go. They'll totally turn it around so that you were the attacker, you were the abuser. They'll make it look like they're the victim. They are enduring this. You don't even realize that they've been telling people these things, maybe even for months, maybe even for years. And so all of a sudden, after the relationship is done, you realize that all these people think that you are abusive or either emotionally, physically, or whatever. Okay. I do have a whole video on how to shut down a narcissist smear campaign, and you might want to check that out. I highly recommend that you check that out. And right now, I just want you to put shut them down in the comments so that you can just start mentally getting yourself ready. Shut them down. Okay. Because you can, you absolutely can. I've helped thousands of people personally, millions of people through this channel. You can do it too. First thing you have to do is believe that you can. No one can help you if you don't believe that you can. All right. You got this. Number 3 thing that they do is they'll start yelling, they'll start screaming, they'll start even calling things out. They'll start doing all kinds of things to seem super dramatic, even if you are super calm, because they want to make it seem like there's something major happening. They may even call the cops first. You know, they may even call cops and get them involved and say that you were the aggressor and make it seem like there was something horrible happening, even if they were the aggressor first. They may call the police, get the police involved, even if they were the first aggressor, and say that you were, and file a police report, even if they were the first aggressor, and say that you were. They may point to scratches on their arm and all that sort of thing, because even if it was you defending yourself, they'll make it seem like you were the one who was the problem. I do have a whole video. It's called Do This to Not React to Narcissists. I would definitely check that out as well. And, you know, make sure that you keep really, really careful records of absolutely everything. Super important. You know, in my SLAY program, I actually have the 12 areas that you should be documenting, and I teach people how to do that. You know, whether it's a business situation or personal situation, I actually have a whole module on how to document properly. But if you are just doing it on your own, make sure you're just keeping really, really careful records. Okay. The next thing that they will do, the 4th thing that they will do to make you look like the abuser is they will actually file false pleadings, fraudulent pleadings. They will lie. They will straight up, bald face, no problemo, lie in court. Yeah, they will write it out, give it to their lawyer. Their lawyer will write it up for them, file it in the court, sit there and lie in court. Don't get too concerned about all of that when that happens. I know some people get really freaked out when that happens. It is something that's deeply upsetting when that happens. They do have to prove it, but you know, there you are on the defensive. One of the things I want you to do is watch my video, stop defending yourself, do this instead. If they are writing you emails that you want to defend yourself on, you know, just write, I'm in receipt of your correspondence. I deny your allegations, you know, whatever. You don't need to respond point by point by point by point, because that's just, then they pull you in and then now you're stuck in the mud with them. And that's what they want you to do. Don't get drawn in, because then they're like leading you by the nose and they get supply from that. Don't allow yourself to be emotionally triggered by them. That is exactly what they want. You know, they want you to be emotionally triggered by them. They get off on that. That gives them a high. And remember that anything that you put your hand to is a potential trial exhibit. Just remember that. Just remember that when you get emotional and they get you yelling, they get you screaming, they get you upset, they get you hitting back, or they get you verbally assaulting them back, and all of that sort of thing, it also goes against you. And that's what they want. I mean, because then judges and the police, they just see two people who are fighting. They just see two people who can't handle themselves. They just see two people who are emotional. And that's not what you want. You want to be the one who's wearing the white hat. You want to be the one that's like, they're the aggressor, they are the abuser, they are the ones that are crazy. They try to goad you, they try to trigger you, they try to get you upset, they try to trigger you. They do everything they can to get under your skin, because they do want you to look like the abuser. They do want you to look like the crazy one. And I mean, I've seen guys, they show up with their video equipment and their camera equipment for visits, to try to make the other person get upset or whatever, and do whatever they can. I mean, all kinds of crazy, stupid stuff to get the other person triggered. And don't take the bait. Do not take the bait when they do these things. Just stay the course, pretend like you're reporting the news. Don't allow yourself to get sucked into the mud with them, because if you do, then they have you. So stay away from that, stay on the outside of that, and keep your records. Slay methodology absolutely does work. That's what you have to do in order to beat them, in order to win. Have you ever met somebody, they started off to be the most charming, charismatic person you've ever met in your life, then they turned out to be your worst nightmare, and then when you go to negotiate with them, they're a living hell? Well, I developed something called the SLAY method of negotiating with narcissists, and it has helped tens of thousands of people in more than 150 countries win, go from feeling drained and defeated to getting the outcomes they want. And the reason why it works is because I spent more than 20 years studying narcissism as a trial attorney, and now I'm here to help you win too, and also take your suffering and turn it into your superpower. Take your pain and turn it into profit, peace, and purpose as a highly specialized, high conflict negotiation coach. If you want to learn how to do it, then just go to RebeccaZung.com/apply, and I will show you how. Okay, so you're in the discard phase with a narcissist, and this is where you start to see the birth of the smear campaign. So what's happening is a narcissist is starting to see that maybe the end is near. And sometimes it even happens 6 months or a year ahead of time. Sometimes it even happens while you're still in relationship with narcissists, but they want to start to smear you because they want to get the edge. It's kind of part of their triangulation phase as well. So what happens in a smear campaign is the narcissist starts to go to other people and say things about you that leaves the other person, the listener, with the idea that maybe there's something wrong with you, that you're not what they thought you were, that you are a bad person in some way, or maybe that the narcissist is a victim of something bad that you've done to them. They're trying to line up their flying monkeys so that these flying monkeys believe that the narcissist is a good person and that you are a bad person. And it especially happens in the discard phase. And if they're more of a covert narcissist, they might start to say things, many months ahead of time, like, oh, she forgot about the kids and didn't feed them dinner, but, she's got so much going on, and, sort of like a kind of a good thing about you, but also sort of like a smearing of you, something like that. If you're dealing with like an in-law, then that mother-in-law might say to somebody else like, oh, I don't know why she insists on keeping my son away from me, when maybe that person never did anything to the mother-in-law, but the mother-in-law wants people to believe that there is a problem. Maybe it's, oh, they're not taking good care of the kids or something like that. They just start to like embed little seeds of doubt in other people's minds that say, you know what, maybe there's something wrong with this person, or I've heard things, about this person. And we as human beings, we tend to take all of that stuff in. That's why National Enquirer and all of these kind of more smutty sort of magazines, they say things about celebrities like, so-and-so was drunk, in public in a bar, and it could be completely wrong. It could be that they weren't even at that bar, or maybe they just showed up over there and had one drink and left. But it becomes this story, and now there's that seed of doubt. Now, every time you see that actor or actress, you think, wonder if that person has a drinking problem. I heard that person has a drinking problem. And especially if it gets picked up by, some media that ends up being sort of more reputable or whatever. And the same thing happens in a smear campaign with narcissists. They end up kind of just saying just enough. They're really masters at saying just enough, like sprinkling in a few kernels of truth so that it sounds believable. It sounds plausible. That seems to be what's actually going on there. And so they will do this so that they can try to get control over you, or try to take you down, try to break you in some way, try to make you go crazy. All of those things that they try to do to get their narcissistic supply. They got to get that hit of narcissistic supply. And if you want to know more about narcissistic supply, check out my video on narcissistic supply. But it's their lifeblood. It's what they need to live on. So there's one particular trait that everybody overlooks, but there are several traits that everybody knows about with narcissists. So I'm going to just go through the ones that everybody knows about, the ones that they think of when they think of narcissists, and then at the end, I'm going to let you know what the one is that everybody overlooks when they look at traits of narcissism. Number one, shamelessness. So narcissists tend to be openly shameless. Like they'll just go and do whatever they want. There's just certain things that narcissists do that I just am so surprised by. I knew a narcissist one time who would just come into our law office and just come right behind the desk and come right into one of our offices and not even ask. And, I find myself with narcissists sometimes thinking, wow, I would never do that. There's just certain things that I would never do that narcissists end up doing. So, but they're just completely shameless in that way. So another trait of narcissism is entitlement. So they feel entitled to anything. They think that they should have the best seat in the house, the best restaurant, the best this, the best that. They should have the best spot in a show or something. If they're in a show, whatever it is, they should be the best. They should have the best. And, even if they're not entitled to it, even if it's not something that they earned or something that they're even qualified for, they don't care about that. It's just like they should have it. So entitlement and also shamelessness, they're kind of like two little hands that fit together, but slightly different, but definitely they're shameless and they feel entitled. So the next one is magical thinking. This is where they just keep going. They don't even look at the path of destruction that they've created. They don't really care. They just imagine the world and look at the world and interact with the world in the way that they want to see it. So it can really definitely be difficult when you're negotiating with a narcissist in that sense. And because, you give an offer, they come back with a counter offer, you go back with an offer that incorporates some of the things that they've already, agreed to, and now all of a sudden they say they never agreed to that, and that sort of thing. It's all this magical thinking. It's part of the gaslighting, and it's just how they think. They just live in their own form of reality. Another trait that they have is envy. They're often very jealous of people. They're very jealous of other people's accomplishments. They can't really congratulate people or be happy for people. They feel like life isn't fair. How come they got it? I should have it. They don't really like when somebody else is getting attention that they feel like they should have. They're just very, very jealous. Sometimes they're jealous of people that they don't even know. Like they'll be watching something on TV and think, oh, why does that person have that? And why does, who do they think they are? I mean, they're just jealous and envious in all different facets, including, of course, in their own personal relationships. It comes from this place of lack. They are not abundance thinkers. They are scarcity thinkers. So, if anybody has anything else, they don't think that, oh, I could do that too, or I could have that too, or how great for them. That's their thing. That's something that's wonderful for them. It has nothing to do with me. They definitely do not think that way. It's very much a jealous, envious, small-minded way of thinking. And if you are so ready to move on and create a new life, give me a "so ready" in the comments. Okay, so the next one, and we're leading up to the one that most people overlook, is exploitation. They're users. They like to use people. Every single person is looked upon as, what can I use? What can I get? Why am I even going to be talking to you at all? They're always sizing people up to see if they are going to be a good form of supply for them. And if you want to know more about narcissistic supply, check out my video on narcissistic supply. But supply is anything that feeds their ego, and you definitely are going to be looked upon by a narcissist in terms of what can you do for them. It's never reciprocated, by the way. It's like, just to be in their space at all, you better be doing something for them. And if you want something out of them, then you better be ready to reciprocate like 100,000-fold. And even that's not good enough. Like, you're supposed to do it all for them. And the next one that you normally hear about is lack of boundaries. And that is, narcissists just do whatever they think they want. They just go wherever they want. They look through people's stuff. They will open people's mail. They will go into people's closets. They will show up places that they're not supposed to show up. They have no boundaries because they feel entitled. And, it all kind of gels together into a toxic stew of yuck. But that's one of the things that they also have, is no boundaries. But the last one is the one that's most overlooked, and that is that narcissists have no sense of self. They feel very small inside. That's the not so secret. They feel inside like nothing. They have a very fragile sense of self. So all of those other traits, the ones that people see, the ones that people identify with the most, the ones that they use, that psychologists and psychiatrists use to determine if somebody's actually narcissistic, are actually all things that they layer on so that they can hide the fact that they have no sense of self themselves. And so they make it look like the Wizard of Oz, and they build all this stuff around them to hide the fact that they are feeble, small, scared, and that you are actually the stronger one. And that's the thing that I really want you to understand when you're negotiating with them. You actually, the biggest scam in the world is that they have you thinking that you're the one who's weaker. They're actually the weaker ones. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Let's be real. Therapy can feel like a really big investment, but your mental health is just as important as your physical health. Traditional in-person therapy can cost $100 to $250 per session, but with BetterHelp, You can save up to 50% per session on average. You pay a flat weekly fee, which means more peace of mind for less. Therapy should feel accessible, not like a luxury. BetterHelp gives you that, all from the comfort from your home. And with over 30,000 therapists to choose from and 5 million people served globally, this is the world's largest online therapy platform, and you can switch therapists at any time. Your well-being is worth it. Visit betterhelp.com/negotiate today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/negotiate. Now, let's talk about word salad. What the heck is a word salad? Narcissists use a variety of things to deflect anything off of themselves and make sure that the other person thinks that they're crazy. They use gaslighting and all sorts of other techniques in order to maintain control over their victims or their targets. So when you are in a relationship with a narcissist, you're going to be dealing with word salad. And I've actually heard some of my clients and my subscribers and the people in my community have talked about how their brains end up feeling like scrambled eggs. It really is in a form of emotional abuse. It's a form of how they traumatize their victims. And it can leave you feeling very confused and very you're powerless and paralyzed. So, you know, before I talk about word salad, let me just give you a little bit of a basic. If you haven't watched any of my other videos before, I want to make sure that I give you some basics, which is that a narcissist has no inner sense of value. They have to get all of their value from the external. Something happened with them when they were a child. They feel they have no self-esteem. They're actually extremely insecure, extremely fragile. And while all of us are on a continuum in some ways, I mean, in some ways all of us have what people would refer to as narcissistic traits, meaning, hey, we all want to feel seen, heard, and know that we matter. That is a universal feeling. If you are a human being, you have those feelings, and there is nothing wrong with those feelings. Of course we matter, and of course we need to feel whole and complete. The thing is, where you're dealing with a narcissist is where it becomes pathological, where it becomes they absolutely need to have it. They thrive on that, and it's so far gone on the continuum that they just have completely lacked any ability to care about another person. A lot of times people think, oh, that person says that they're so great, they have to be a narcissist. Well, you're forgetting about the second half of that, which is not only do they think that they're great, which is nothing wrong with that, right? But they completely lack any ability to have any feelings or care or empathy for another person. They may know what to do to pretend. And when they're love bombing, they're in that, and they do long for connection, but they just are so pathologically ill in a lot of ways. I mean, they're mentally ill. They cannot cross that bridge. So they feel that they have to manipulate the world in order to get what they want. And so they use a variety of tools. They have a whole little tool chest that they go to manipulate the world and to gaslight people and to just to continue to maintain control. In other words, they just don't feel inside that anybody will actually ever love them or be with them unless they are manipulating the situation. It's actually quite sad, but you empath, yeah, I'm talking to you, you cannot fix them, and the emotional abuse will not stop. They really can't be rehabilitated other than to, and I've talked to psychologists about this, and I do highly recommend that you watch some of my other videos, like with Dr. Ramani, and
specifically my interviews with Dr. Ramani and Tina Swithin in One Mom's Battle, how to represent yourself in court. Dr. Ramani actually talks about if they can be rehabilitated, and basically she talks about how they can learn how to behave sometimes. Like she has actually had a few narcissists as patients, and she's been able to get them to a point of being able to kind of pretend like they care enough about people, or go through the motions or act the right way, but they don't actually ever come to a point of truly caring, because there's something within themselves that's like broken. It's like wishing somebody could grow an arm back if their arm has been amputated or something for some reason. So it's just those some things are just not possible. So as part of their world of manipulation, they use something called word salad. And in the narcissism world, that basically means that they talk in a way that's like circular conversation. That's one of the things. You think something is settled, and then they come back as if it hasn't been settled, and there they bring it up again, and you're thinking, wait a minute, I thought we had done that conversation. Why are you bringing that up again? Something like that. So you'll provide an explanation for something. For example, why were you late? And you say, I was late because I was taking care of my sister. And then you have some big fight about it or whatever, but you prove it, you show I was late because I was taking care of my sister, blah, blah, blah. And then like 5 minutes later, they come back, why were you late? I can't believe that you were late. I can't believe you did this to me. And you think, didn't we just have this conversation? I thought we had this conversation. But there you are having it again, and they're just trying to like force it out of you again, and it's just a way of trying to make you feel bad or feel guilty or give them attention and show you how horrible you were for disrespecting them and not showing up when you were supposed to, and that sort of thing. So circular conversation is one of their favorite little word salad techniques. Another technique that they use for word salad is just a complete lack of logic. So for example, if they'll accuse you of cheating. You were at lunch with your mother and your sister, and they'll say, I know that you were cheating, and you're sitting there defending yourself thinking, what the heck are you talking about? I was at lunch with my mother and my sister. You know that I was texting you the whole time. I sent you pictures of myself there. I mean, and even if you didn't do that, you know that that's where you were, and you're just like the person who would never cheat. But yet here they are like saying, well, you're obviously a cheater. Look at what you're wearing. And you're looking at yourself going, I'm wearing jeans and a t-shirt. Like, what you're saying has absolutely no logic whatsoever. It makes no sense, but here you are defending yourself like there's something wrong with you. And it's just this utter verbal chaos of like you're in the twilight zone. So that's number 2, is just a complete lack of logic. And another version of word salad is, your typical garden variety gaslighting. And if you want to know more about gaslighting, you should definitely check out my video on gaslighting techniques. But basically, it's saying things to make you think that you're crazy. They'll say, I'm going to go away for the weekend with my friends. And you'll say, oh, when are you doing that? And they'll say, oh, we talked about that and you agreed. Don't you remember? And you're sitting there thinking, no, we never had that conversation. Like, where did that come from? But when they do that over and over and over again, you really do start to question your own mind. You start to question your own sanity. You start to think, well, maybe we did have that conversation, because they'll do it to you over and over and over again so many times that you think, well, I don't know, maybe I am the one that's crazy. And what happens with this whole word salad thing is it really just eats away at your self-esteem, and it eats away at your sense of self. So much so that you really start to question everything about yourself, and you start to really believe, and you've been so traumatized that you start to really believe that, gosh, if I were just more perfect, if I were just better, if I just tried harder, if I just were more careful with my words, if I just checked in with him more and showed him or her how often I where I was, I can prove to this person, I don't want to say him or her, obviously there's narcissists in all genders. You just start to believe, like, it's me, it's definitely me, there's something wrong with me. And they really want you to believe that, until something in your little soul, and I always refer to the Maya Angelou, I know why the caged bird sings, because that caged bird is your soul. And when people end up in my office as an attorney and they're ready to get divorced, or I'm on a coaching call with somebody who's dealing with a narcissistic business partner, or somebody who wants to talk with me about figuring out a way or a strategy or leverage with dealing with narcissists, they start to, really see that, like, this is a soul decision. I call it a soul decision. Your soul knows that something is deeply wrong. Your soul knows that it's time to sing it. Your soul knows it's time to be free. And so slowly but surely you get that little glimpse of light. And that's when you start watching videos like mine, or many of the others of us who are in this space, that I've collaborated with, such as Dr. Ramani, Tina Swithin, Tracy Malone, Kim Saeed, Melanie Tanya Evans. All of us are in this space working for you you get that glimmer of light. Your soul gets that glimmer of light, and you go, oh my God, this is me, this is what's happening. And you start gathering information, and you start getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And that's why I do what I do.
So let's talk about the tactics that narcissists use to manipulate and punish their victims. So the first thing that they do to even be able to be put in a position of being able to manipulate and punish their victims is they love bomb. And I talk a lot more about love bombing in my video on love bombing, so check that out if you want. But really what it is they are extremely charismatic. One of the hallmarks of narcissists is they are very likable to the outside world. They're like the greatest salesman on earth in a lot of ways. They are extremely intelligent. They are masters at reading people. So right from the beginning, they are reading you to see how they can best kind of worm their way into your lives and put themselves in a position to be able to do things like this. Because it's not like they come along being abusive. You would never have gotten into that relationship with them if they just came on that way. They come off seeming perfect for you. And even when you're not in a romantic relationship with these people, maybe it's just a business relationship, they still come off as if they were like a gift from heaven. Like, you can't even believe how wonderful this person is. They're if it's in business, they are the perfect business partner for you. They have all the right contacts. They can make all the right introductions. They can put you in incredible places, and you will elevate your career by being with them. So that's that. And then, if it's a romantic relationship, obviously they're perfect for you in every way. They have the perfect job. They take care of you. They say how amazing you are. If you're a guy, you're the most handsome thing they've ever seen, a total Adonis. If you are a woman, then you're the most beautiful woman they've ever seen. They can't believe how perfect you are for them. They've never had another soulmate like this. They've never even been in love before until you came along. I mean, whatever they need to say in order to suck you in to be. And so that's really one of the first ways that they manipulate and punish to start being even in a position to manipulate and punish their victims is that love bomb stage. The next thing that you'll notice, and these are in no particular order at all, but one of the ways that they manipulate and punish their victims is by ghosting them. So now all of a sudden you can't get in touch with them. You know, they've been texting you for days on end, 20,000 times a day. And now when you want to call them out on something, or you want them for something, or you need them for something, now all of a sudden they can't be found. They aren't there. And then when you question them on it, it was, oh, I was busy. How dare you? I'm working, or something like that. Or if you're calling them out on something that, you know, maybe that, you know, you are questioning them on, maybe they're speaking to somebody else that they shouldn't be, they've been particularly flirty or something like that, then, you know, they'll start ghosting you. Like they'll just totally ignore you. And that's one of the ways that they punish their victims. And if you want to know more about ghosting, check out my 101 series, my Narcissism 101 series. I have tons of videos in there about all the different terminology that you need to know, and ghosting is one of those videos, so we'll make sure that we drop a link to that below as well. Another thing that they will try to do is they will start trying to make you jealous. And, you know, sometimes this is called triangulation. Sometimes they just are lining up flying monkeys to be against you, but they're talking to other people. They're trying to make it seem like they have a better relationship with other people, or these other people are better than you in some way. They're starting to put you down. They're starting this like little subtle devaluing starts. And if you want to know more about devaluing, check out my video on devaluing. But this is where the subtle devaluing starts, where you start to go, gosh, you know, that didn't feel right. That didn't seem right. And a lot of times, especially with covert narcissists, and there's a whole bunch more on this in my video on the covert passive aggressive narcissists, who are my personal ones that I hate the most, because I've had to deal with them in my own life and fell prey to a couple of them in my own life, which I never will again because I know so much about narcissism now. But you know, one of the things that they do is like these little subtle drip, drip, drip things that are so small that you like, do I even say anything about this? Or maybe I'm making too much of it. Maybe I'm just going crazy. You know, it's oftentimes death by 1,000 cuts, where you just think, well, that didn't seem right. Or maybe they are just, you know, talking to this person because they have a work relationship with them, or because they're trying to build a better relationship with our neighbors or our friends. And maybe I am making too much of it. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Or maybe I'm being overly jealous, or, you know, you start questioning yourself as to whether or not you're kind of blowing it out of proportion, because that's what they'll try to make it seem like you're doing, is blowing it out of proportion. And the next thing that they do to manipulate and punish their victims is gaslighting. And I have a whole video on gaslighting. And this is something that all narcissists do. And they do it, by the way, not just to you, but they kind of gaslight everybody. And that is, it's a huge way that they get along in the world. And that is like, even though you're looking at evidence and you see facts of something, they basically, and you know what conversation you had, they make it seem like that's not what you're seeing, that's not what you're looking at, that's not what you heard, that's not how it went down, you know, you're remembering it wrong, you are taking something out of context, you are, you know, even if you have an email or something I mean, this is one of the things that happened in my relationship with one of the narcissists I was dealing with. It was, you know, even though I had an email that said, this is what the conversation was, and mine was in a business setting, the person came back and was like, oh, we talked about this and you agreed to blah, blah, blah. And even though the email didn't even say that, but, you know, they just will say, well, but that's a conversation that we had, or whatever. You agreed to that. And of course, it's something you would never agree to. But, you know, you start to slowly lose your mind. And that's what happens with gaslighting. You just are starting to slowly lose your mind. And if this is exactly what you have seen in your relationship with the narcissist, I want to see an exactly in the comments. Just give me the word exactly in the comments. And the next thing that they do is they go straight from degrading and insulting you to love bombing you again. And sometimes this is called hoovering. And it's especially, you see this like during the birth of the smear campaign, during the discard phase, whether you're discarding or they're discarding. And sometimes they start this long before the actual discard happens, because they're either expecting you to discard them eventually, or they're expecting to discard you eventually. But they go from this heinous beast of a string of insults and the gaslighting and the intimidation tactics and all of these manipulation tactics that, you know, I talked about, the passive aggressiveness, on and on and on, to, oh, but, you know, we've always been able to get along, we can work this out, or even if it's we can come to an agreement. You know, when you're in the middle of a divorce, all of a sudden they become your best friend. All of a sudden things are happening that are completely confusing you. And they do that again to manipulate you, because they want to get you away from your lawyer, or they want to get you away from your therapist, or they want to get you away from whoever it is that they think now has some other form of control over you. And why do they do that? First, yes, of course, they want you to do what they want you to do. But it all comes back to narcissistic supply, which is the holy grail for narcissists. Everything they do is driven by that narcissistic supply. It's like the rat in the maze that's going for that cheese. That's exactly what they're going for all the time. And one of the things I say about narcissists is, even though they are absolutely the most horrible people to deal with on the planet, they are actually very simple to understand. And once you get them, once you figure out that everything that they're doing is to keep as much narcissistic supply as they can possibly get, and you're just part of that scheme and you're part of that manipulation, and if you are in their zone of world and you even could possibly continue to be a source of supply, they're going to keep you around. So when you're going to negotiate with the narcissist, that's one of the things that you need to remember the most, is that everything that they do is driven by narcissistic supply. So this is by no means a comprehensive list of all of the things that they do to manipulate and punish their victims. I mean, certainly in a divorce setting, they do all kinds of things like weaponize the court system, use children as pawns, ignore court orders, ignore requests to produce, not produce financial documents, on and on and on. Intimidation, threats of violence, lying, stalking, all kinds of things I've seen in the divorce cases, which they do even in dissolution of business settings or dissolution of business partner settings. They act the same way that they do in regular life, only on steroids and 1,000 times worse.
If you're a renter, this is a no-brainer. You earn points on groceries and travel, so why not on rent? With Bill, paying rent finally pays off. There's no cost to join, and just by paying rent, you unlock flexible points that can be transferred to your favorite hotels and airlines, a future rent payment, and your next Lyft ride, and more. When you pay rent through Bill, you unlock two powerful benefits. First, you earn one of the industry's most valuable points on rent every month, no matter where you live or who your landlord is. Your rent now works for you. Second, you gain access to your exclusive neighborhood benefits in your city. These include extra points on dining out, complimentary post-workout shakes, and unique experiences only Built members can access. And when you're ready to travel, Built points can be converted to miles and hotel points. Your rent can literally take you places. Start paying rent through Built and take advantage of your neighborhood benefits by going to joinbuilt.com/negotiate. That's joinbilt.com/negotiate. Make sure to use our URL so they know we sent you. That's joinbuilt.com/negotiate. We are going to guide you through the minefields, guide you through the minefields of the tactics that narcissists use to break you. All right. And, I know that you are feeling maybe broken down. You're maybe feeling disempowered. They want you to feel destabilized. They use these tactics to try to control you. And when you go to negotiate with them or try to communicate with them, which is where I come in, I am a negotiations expert. I'm an attorney. I've helped people in many, many different arenas. And if you don't have my brand new book, Slay the Bully, How to Negotiate with a Narcissist and Win, definitely go and grab that. But, I want to help you transform. In this, they launch psychological warfare on you, right? So they're like these shadowy gladiators. They come on charming. They start off charming. And they try to break your spirit. And one of the weapons that they use is gaslighting. All of them use gaslighting. Even covert narcissists, especially covert narcissists. And how that will show up is in many different arenas. In my book, Slay the Bully, How to Negotiate with a Narcissist and Win, I actually talked about so many different forms of gaslighting. When I went to go start writing the chapter, I thought, wow, there are so many different forms of gaslighting that I could actually write an entire book just on gaslighting. I didn't even realize, as I started writing about it, how many different forms of gaslighting there are until I started writing about it. And what gaslighting is basically a way to make you think that you are crazy. It's a way to make you think that your reality is not your reality. What you're seeing is not what you're seeing. What you're hearing is not what you're hearing. What you are feeling is not what you're feeling in any different scenario, whatever it is. So, it might be, we had that conversation, don't you remember? And you're like, we never had that conversation. Or it might be you're too sensitive, so what you're feeling is not what you're feeling. It might be any way to distort your perception so that you're doubting the ground upon which you stand or the feelings that you're feeling so that you start to literally doubt yourself. Your brain is foggy and you really don't feel like yourself anymore. And it's vile and it's venomous. And it's a way to take control of you.
because that's what they want to do. Narcissists are people who don't feel good about themselves. Because they don't feel good about themselves, they want to take control of others through these methods. They are very fear-based individuals. They're very insecure individuals. And so they use this method, and it can be in the form of passive aggression, or it can be in the form of withholding. It can be in the form of you're looking at a text message that looks like somebody is being flirtatious. You're reading too much into this. So, it's anything that makes you look like you are doubting your reality. And that's what gaslighting is. The next form of psychological warfare tactic a narcissist uses to break you is triangulation, where they basically play puppeteer or marionette. They're taking a marionette and they manipulate relationships to create this web or line up armies to isolate you, make you feel bullied, make you feel like you are the only one who feels a certain way. And, as a child, I was bullied. And, so this is something that is very triggering for me, that's for sure. And it's to make you feel like you're the only one who thinks this, or everyone's going to believe their lies. And it's to make you feel like you might as well give up, because what are you going to do? You're never going to win. The cards are stacked against you. So what are you going to do? It's extremely deflating. It's defeating. It's a smear campaign, and you definitely see this in the discard phase. But many times with covert narcissists, they start seeding this triangulation even long before you even know that it's happening. I mean, they might start saying, "Oh, I'm so concerned about Johnny, concerned about his drinking, just worried about him, just worried, just so concerned." And they put it in terms of care or concern, so that people think that they're such a good person. They're really manipulating. They're really actually smearing. So that's, a way that they will start triangulating. And another form of tactic that a narcissist will use to break you is projection. They project and cast their own flaws onto you or others in a twisted sort of mirror game to take whatever is going on with them and project it and put it onto others. So, because they don't want it to reflect back onto them what's going on with them. So, that's another one. And then there's always this love bombing and devaluation cycle as well. Love bombing, devaluation, love bomb, devaluation, which happens throughout the cycle of a relationship until you get down into the discard. It's the cruel sort of hit of dopamine, and then back into devaluation, and then you're craving that hit of dopamine, which is a very, very powerful craving, addiction hit that you are looking for, showering you with affection and casting you down with scorn. So which of these have you guys faced? I would love to know. Let me know in the comments. Tell me your tale. Tell me your battles in the comments. Which story could be your beacon of hope for others? Tell us in the comments below. And picture, this, a client during negotiations has ruthlessly been gaslighted, facts twisted until they're doubting their own sanity, they're doubting their own reality. And then I step in, not just as their lawyer, but trying to help them with their reality, reminding them of what their reality actually is. We strategize, we document, we ground them in their truth, in their reality, and we triumph. Have you ever felt that grounding of reality shake beneath you, and then you needed to find your footing again? Has that ever happened to you? Your insights are so invaluable. Share them below. Share them below. Triangulation can be so disarming. And if you need an ally, you need that ally, and but you're suddenly feeling like you're alone. Remember that knowledge lies in power, in having that, you need to have that power behind you, right? So having that battle plan is so important. That's why I wrote my book, Slay the Bully, How to Negotiate with a Narcissist and Win. That's a battle plan for you. Tactics, spot them, stop, stand strong against these assaults. Facing smear campaigns can feel like you are stuck in quicksand, right? So you need to have the right words. You need to have a lifeline. And I've curated potent phrases for you to disarm any narcissist, leaving them speechless. So if you want to know what they are, get my free phrases for disarming narcissists. You can get them by clicking the link on Disarming Narcissists. Just go to disarmthenarc.com and get them. They're totally free. And that way, if you're ever at a loss for words, you'll have them. And I would love to know which is your favorite, right? Share your favorite phrase with us in the comments. Your wisdom is a torch for so many who are stuck in the dark.